My name is Ryan Caldwell, and what I am about to tell you is not a thriller, not a screenplay, and not a story someone invented for ratings. This is real. This happened. And 50 days later, nobody has been caught. Nobody has talked. And one family is still waiting for an answer that refuses to come. This is the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, and tonight, everything changes. She was 84 years old, sleeping in her own bed, in her own home, in one of the most protected neighborhoods in Tucson, Arizona. And someone took her anyway. Not by accident, not in a moment of panic, but with the kind of cold, breathtaking precision that keeps FBI veterans awake at night, staring at the ceiling, replaying every detail, asking themselves the question that has no comfortable answer. How does someone simply vanish? Nancy Guthrie, the mother of Today Show anchor Savannah Guthrie, has been gone for 50 days. 50 days of silence so thick and so deliberate, it no longer feels like the absence of answers. It feels like a warning. A $1 million reward sits unclaimed. In the criminal underworld, that number doesn't just open doors. It tears them off the hinges. It makes best friends sell each other out before breakfast. It makes hardened men cry in federal offices and beg for witness protection. But in Nancy Guthrie's case, that $1 million has been met with something far more terrifying than greed. Silence. Total, unbroken, suffocating silence. No tipsters, no panicked accomplices, no ransom note slipped under a door at 3 a.m. And the investigators who have spent decades hunting the worst kinds of human beings alive will tell you that kind of silence doesn't happen by accident. That silence is engineered. Which means the people who took Nancy Guthrie are not hiding in fear. They are hiding in confidence. And in the last 48 hours, everything we thought we knew about this case has been ripped apart at the seams. The night of January 31st gave no warning. At 9:50 p.m., Nancy's son-in-law, Tommaso Cioni, dropped her off at her front door, watched her step inside, and drove away into the night, believing she was safe. The door locked, the lights went dark, the neighborhood breathed. But someone was already watching, and at 1:47 a.m. they moved. A figure appeared on her front porch, masked, gloved, armed, and moving with a calm that is almost more disturbing than rage would have been. He didn't rush. He didn't hesitate. He reached up and cut her doorbell camera feed in one practiced motion. The way a man cuts something he has already practiced cutting 100 times before. In that single second, an 84-year-old woman was severed from every set of eyes that could have saved her. What followed inside those walls is the part that haunts everyone who has studied this case. Motion detected in her hallway at 2:12 a.m. 16 minutes later, at 2:28 a.m., the medical device permanently attached to Nancy's body went completely, irreversibly silent. 16 minutes. Close your eyes and count that. Count 960 seconds and ask yourself, could you move through a pitch-black house you have never been inside before? Find an elderly woman in her bedroom. Subdue her without a single sound escaping through a single wall. Carry her through a dark hallway, out a door, and into a waiting vehicle, all without one neighbor dog barking, one light flickering on, one alarm shattering the night. FBI profilers say no, not one person, not even close. The level of silence that blanketed that extraction is not humanly possible without coordination, without roles assigned in advance, without someone who had walked that route in their mind so many times they could do it blindfolded, which, in the dark, they essentially did. And here is where the investigation fractures into something far darker. Directly across the street from Nancy's home, a house went vacant just days before she disappeared. Investigators are now pulling that detail apart like a wound that won't close, because they believe that empty house was not empty at all, not in the way that matters. Someone sat inside those unlit rooms for days, watching the street through darkened windows, logging the minute her bedroom light went out each night, timing Tommaso's arrivals and departures to the second,
science teacher,
identifying every camera angle, every blind spot, every gap in the neighborhood's digital eyes.
Now let us follow.
This was not a robbery that spiraled. This was a hunt, planned with funding, executed with discipline, and aimed with terrifying specificity at one woman, not because of what she had, but because of who she was. They didn't want her jewelry. They didn't want her savings. They wanted her. Nancy Guthrie, specifically, deliberately, personally. Even the most invisible criminals leave something behind. In the desert brush surrounding her home, investigators recovered a leather glove. It hit the national DNA database and returned nothing. A dead end that sent the family spiraling back into despair. But the forensic teams didn't stop. They pushed deeper, and they found it. Viable biological material extracted from the fabric. The sweat, or perhaps the blood, of whoever wore that glove is now inside a federal laboratory, being matched against every database available. And pulled from the same desert dirt, a pair of pajamas. The question of what those pajamas mean is the one keeping investigators up at night. Did Nancy fight back in that hallway, tearing and clawing and leaving pieces of herself behind in the darkness? Or did one of her captors strip them off mid-flight, desperate to shed evidence in a panicked run through the wilderness? Both answers mean violence happened. Both answers mean Nancy was not simply walked out of that house. Then comes the failure. The one that may define this entire investigation in the worst possible way. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos released the crime scene before the FBI finished their forensic sweep. Cleaning crews entered. Cameras followed. Reporters stood within literal inches of blood droplets left on the exterior walkway, a blood trail that ended precisely at the edge of the pavement, proving a vehicle had been idling there in the darkness, waiting to swallow her whole. That trail was the map. It was the evidence that could have named someone, placed someone, convicted someone. And it was left exposed to open-air, civilian contamination and television cameras rolling live.
Speechless.
A family is out there right now, desperate and fractured, and the evidence that could bring their mother home may have been compromised by a decision made in the very first hours of the investigation. The weight of that is not procedural. It is personal. It is devastating. Steve Moore and Kurt Dabb, men who spent their careers inside the FBI hunting predators exactly like this, are no longer speaking carefully. They are saying plainly what the evidence already shouts. This required a crew, a minimum of 2 to 4 people. Someone inside the house, someone managing the extraction, a driver sitting in the dark with the engine running, possibly a scout positioned further out, watching for patrol cars. And the fact that in 50 days, not one member of that crew has cracked under the pressure of $1 million reward tells you everything about the nature of their bond. This is not a group of criminals held together by loyalty. They are held together by something far more unbreakable: shared exposure. Every one of them goes down if one of them talks, and so they don't talk. They don't move. They wait. Savannah Guthrie goes on television every morning. She sits under those studio lights and she does her job, and the audience watching at home has no idea what it costs her. What it takes to hold yourself together when your mother's somewhere in the dark and you don't know if she is cold, if she is frightened, if she is alive. That is the human reality sitting at the center of this investigation that no forensic detail can fully capture. A daughter, waiting, every single day, smiling for the cameras while her world quietly burns. I am Ryan Caldwell, and I need you to understand something before we end tonight. The FBI is hunting for the fracture. One burner phone that blinks on too close to a cell tower. One strand of DNA that lights up a federal database. One person who closes their eyes at night and can no longer carry the weight of what they have done. That moment is coming. It always comes. But until it does, the terrifying reality is this: if they could take Nancy Guthrie from a locked home in a guarded neighborhood without leaving a sound, then none of us are as safe as we believe. The locks on our doors are only as strong as the secrets we don't know are being kept. Stay vigilant, keep asking questions, and keep watching. Because when the truth about Nancy Guthrie finally surfaces, it will not arrive quietly. It will arrive like a verdict.